بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. الحمد لله الذي عافانا. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا Allah. Oh Allah, increase us in knowledge and make us benefit from what we learn and make us always seek knowledge. Ameen. Welcome to the Fiqh of Purification class number 3. The first two classes we talked about the etiquette of student of knowledge and the early scholars and the early Sahabas, how they learned and their amazing persistence and manners or mannerism. And the second class we talked about the introduction to fiqh and fiqh history and how come now we have fiqh. So can anybody tell me, it's not a quiz, you don't have to worry or freak out or anything. Can anybody tell me, just a quick review, what's fiqh mean again? Literally and Islamically.
Jurisprudence.
Use the same word I cannot pronounce. Jurisprudence. Okay. Yes. Fiqh in Arabic meaning to understand. Someone yatafaqqah in something, like Prophet Muhammad said, "Man yurid Allahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fi din." Whoever Allah wants good for him, make him understand the fiqh of the deen. And we said that fiqh is 1/3 of the Quran, because Quran talks about worship, talks about stories, and talks about halal and haram. And halal and haram and the commands are all fiqh. So fiqh is literally the 1/3 of the deen, 1/3 of your deen, and 1/3 of the religion. Okay. And we talked a little bit about the Sharia. I'm not going to get into that. We talked about it last class. Basically, fiqh in Islamic way, it's the knowledge of the practical legal rulings that are derived from specific evidences, right? And by the way, everything is in PDF in the groups that we set up. If you're not in the group, join the group. You can also find the PDF, inshallah. So it's practical because it's matters that are practical in the deen. What do I do if I'm traveling? What do I do if women, I have period? What if I do is if I'm wearing socks and it's cold, can I wipe on it? Practical. And then it's legal because it's legal in the matters of the deen. It's not it's laws, but it's not the law of traffic because we don't care about that. That's not fiqh, right? And then derived from specific evidences, right? Is derived from specific evidences because we cannot just say, well, I think we should do this. We have to base it on something from the Quran or Sunnah or from the ijma', we talked about it, which is what is ijma' again? Consensus. Okay, you're going to raise your hand because you're getting chocolate, right? So if you're getting chocolate, you have to fight for it. I don't have a lot. Okay, consensus, right? The ijma' is the consensus of the scholars, right? And then there's other ways that the scholars use. Okay. And we talked about why is it important that we use evidence, because evidence is the base of our religion. We also talked that the definition of fiqh must be jami' and must be mani'. Jami' meaning comprehensive. So when you say this apple is a fruit, the category is fruit. So that's jami', right? That's comprehensive. Comprehensive meaning for the apple. But if you just leave it there, right, and you tell someone just give me an apple which is a fruit, he will not know which one is it. He might get you a banana or I was going to say cucumber, no, or a watermelon, right? Until you go to the second definition, which is mani', exclusive. That's specific. Then you say it has seeds, it's round, it's green, red, like that, right? So that's how you define. We talked about the sources of fiqh, that they are the Quran, the Sunnah, the ijma' of the scholars. And then there is something called ijtihad, which is someone with a lot of knowledge, as a scholar, as muhaddith, as mujtahid, has a lot of knowledge that he can come at certain situations and make the best judgment based on, again, evidences for situations that never happened before, maybe, right? And then there's something called qiyas. You know the ruling on this matter, but this matter is new, but they are similar in nature. Then you say it's based on that, this and that. So for example, drugs and alcohol. We know alcohol is haram. Drugs was not mentioned anywhere in the Quran or the Sunnah, but it has the same intoxicating factor or effect like the alcohol, then by qiyas it is haram, right? So we talked about that. We talked about why the scholars, if all the sources are the same, why the scholars differ, right? And what was the main reason after all the things that they differ? Just raise your hand. Like Allah could have made us agree on every single matter. Why didn't He? Do you remember that one? Give it a shot. Try. Because why didn't we agree on every single matter of the religion? Why the scholars have different opinions? And okay, one of which is, of course, that the text. Not everyone has access to the text. Some of the scholars had access to Hadith. Some like the people of Iraq did not have access to Hadith. The people of Hijaz had a lot of access to Hadith. Some of which was the usage of the fiqh ruling. Right? When we say fiqh ruling, they call it al-qawa'id al-fiqhiyya or fiqh maxims, such as the underlying rules which makes things. For example, ad-darurat tubihu al-mahdhurat. Necessities allow for, or hardship allow for, non-permissible thing to be permissible. You are in the desert, you're gonna die, there's nothing at all except alcohol. There's no water, you're gonna die. What do? Yes, in that case you can drink alcohol, but there are conditions. One, this is just a quick one, you drink only what makes you alive. You don't keep drinking, right? Number two, if there is water, you stop. Number three, you hate it. You know that this is wrong, but this is the situation, right? Someone stick a gun to your head and say that you don't believe in Allah, astaghfirullah, but He's going to kill you. The scholar says, in that case, say yes. Actually, don't kill yourself. Right? Especially if He's going to let you live and you can do something to fight that enemy again. Right? Because in Islam, when you study fiqh, the biggest thing that Islam preserves is the soul. Right? So you will see a lot of rulings around harm to the soul and things of that sort. But the real reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make us agree on every single matter, why we have halal and haram and something in the middle, is that He wants to test who loves Allah. If you love Allah and you know you used to go this way and someone show you all the hadith, all the dalil, all the proofs, that's it. You don't argue. You don't say, yeah, but I'm not convinced. Right away, you change. That's how you love Allah, right? And everyone can test themselves when you hear the things that you should be doing, and are you reluctant? Are you really into it, right? Okay. Now, I'm afraid to ask the question, but you guys bought the book, downloaded the book? Who bought or downloaded the book? You had the book, you forgot? No? Okay. It's really easy to download. You click on it and it downloads. The link is in the thing. Okay, that's fine. So, inshallah, please try to download the book. It's PDF, it's free, and that's what's amazing about Islamic books. So many Islamic books, when you look at them, you'll see in the front, it says, you can make copies of this. Fi sabilillah. There's no copyright. Just that, don't sell it, because they made it, and they're okay if you actually make copies fi sabilillah, right? And a lot of these books are like that. So many people, alhamdulillah, they scan those books for us. They scan this book, this whole book, for us as a PDF, right? So let's appreciate their work, download it, and you will see it. It's an amazing book, mashallah. Okay, if you look at this book, which is it's called Bulugh al-Maram. It's a fiqh book, right? Any fiqh book you can find, it will always start with water. Which is funny, because Islam came to the Arabs in Arabian Peninsula where there's no water. But if you look at how they discuss water, they're like water experts. Subhanallah. Because water is so important for your tahara, for your purification, for your wudu, for your ghusl, right? For anything almost you do. So that's really an irony, but it's an amazing irony. Now we're going to start, today inshallah, we're going to actually start the real handling of fiqh. So far we were just touching the base. And what we're going to do is we're going to read hadith by hadith, and we're going to understand what that means. And what does it mean to us from a purification perspective. By the end of this course, we would have, it depends on the progress, we would have spent got to know anything between 70 to 100 hadith, inshallah. So that's why it's really important to download. So I'm going to read you the first hadith. The first hadith, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, he was asked, they were on the sea, the Sahaba were on the sea, in the ship. And then it's time to pray. So they asked Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, can we use the water from the sea to make wudu? Right? They asked him, can you make wudu? His answer was, هو الطهور ماؤه الحل ميتته, meaning its water is tahur and its dead are lawful to eat. Its water is tahur and its dead are lawful to eat. So my first question is, they asked Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, is this water clean? Can we use it? Tahur meaning, do you remember? Anybody? Pure, okay. And then anything else? Any other? There's tahur and there's tahir. So tahur is pure, but it can be used to purify others. So water is tahur because you use it, right? It's pure in itself and you can use it to purify others, right? Milk is not tahur. Milk is tahir. It's pure. But can you use it to make wudu? You can't, right? Right? Honey is tahir, but you cannot use it to make wudu or make ghusl. Imagine you use honey, you'll be all sticky all over. You cannot move, right? Okay, so they asked him about that, about the seawater. Instead of saying yes, because it is, he didn't say yes. Why didn't he say yes? He said, it is its water is tahur and the dead, meaning the animal which dies in the sea, is also halal to eat. Why did he answer all this? What do you think the case is? Yes.
Like to give them ruling, like telling them that everything that lives in the sea is halal to eat.
Everything but they didn't ask about the food. You're getting there, but don't be scared. If you want to learn fiqh, you gotta ask questions. You gotta raise your hand. Don't worry, there's no right or wrong. Just try. Yes.
Maybe to teach them about
What is?
tahur
What is tahur? Okay. That's part of it. Okay. Anything else? He could have just said yes. What if he just said yes? What would have happened?
Is it to give more explanation so people can use this example to figure out if the others do this?
Okay, so he's giving more generalizations. Right. I think you're all right. Let's see. Hope I have enough chocolate today. So it's you and the sister. Okay. I think you got it too, right? I'll be right. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. So session 2, we continue inshallah after Maghrib. We are at Bulugh al-Maram, and this is, we're going to talk about hadith number 3. Right? So hadith number 1 was about the seawater, but it was general. Hadith number 2 says that the water does not get impure by anything, right? Which is interesting, but we're going to look at a few more hadith before we can make some conclusions. Hadith number 3, did you have the book now? Trying to download? Okay. So promise yourself, after the class, I am downloading the book. Not wait until next week. Okay. Hadith number 3, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, water cannot be rendered impure by anything except something which changes its smell, its taste, and its color. Ibn Majah. That was in Ibn Majah. Now, this hadith, starting with the portion except something which changes its taste, color, and smell, that part is da'if. What's da'if? Weak. Meaning the narrators could be whatever, some issue. However, it was recorded by Al-Bayhaqi, he's one of the collectors of the hadith, as weak. However, the scholars of Islam have agreed, meaning they made ijma', that the water can only be changed by color, by a change to its color, smell, or taste. So that means that piece, that italic piece, when you get the notes, inshallah, the hadith says water cannot be rendered impure by anything except that piece from except and forward, except something which changes its color, its taste, and its smell. That piece actually is an ijma' of the scholars. Now, is ijma' an evidence? Yes. You said yes, you said no? No. Why no?
Is that evidence?
Is ijma' an evidence?
No, but they make ijma using their evidences.
Use ijma', make evidence. Okay, so it's an evidence, meaning it uses evidence, so it's a source, right? Okay, so it was just technicality of how to say things, right? Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said in hadith, لا تجتمع أمتي على ضلالة. My ummah will never agree on error, on misguidance. Meaning, if you have scholars and they all agree on one subject, and let's say they were all misguided, they were all doing the wrong thing, there will be at least one scholar who will come say, no, I disagree. That's the meaning of this hadith. لا تجتمع أمتي على ضلالة. My ummah will not agree on an error. But if they agree, that's it. If the scholars agree, that's it. Now, someone can argue, wait a second, we know that, give you an issue, music is haram, but some scholars in California, they said it's halal. Okay, we're talking about the strong scholars. We're talking about the madhabs. We're talking about the fuqaha over the years. Now, most of the controversial issues, you'll see that it happened only in the past 20, 30, 40 years by modern scholars who make everything good, everything halal. When you talk about the real solid scholars, they do not agree on that. Okay, so as long as there is no disagreement among the ulama or the scholars, then the ijma' is valid. If there's at least one disagreement, the ijma' is not valid, right? And ijma' itself is a very complicated matter to come to. So you can think they're just like, okay, they're just gonna say whatever. No, it's not. It actually, it's a very complicated process. We're not gonna get into it. Now, why do we also say that ijma' is a valid thing? Because there's another fiqh issue. It's called al-hukmu ala al-aghlab. Al-hukmu ala al-aghlab, meaning the predominant situation takes the rulings. The predominant situation takes the rulings. For example, example one, a pious man. He's a pious man. Can he make sense? He makes sense, right? He's not, only one who didn't was Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Can he make sense? A pious man? Yes. But what is he predominantly? Pious, right? Someone who's sinful. He's fasiq. He's always doing wrong thing. Can he do good things sometimes? Yes, he can. But the predominant situation is he's fasiq, right? A very good example, Abu Huraira. It's a long story, but Abu Huraira, a shaitan came to him in a form of a man, to teach him. He was coming as a man every night stealing money, and Abu Huraira catch him, but then he says, please, my kids, I have, and he let him go. One time, two times, the third time, and every time he tells Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and he says to him, you gotta catch him. And the third time, this Abu Huraira said that I'm not letting him go. So he caught him, you're stealing, that's it, we're gonna punish you. So he told him, look, I'm gonna teach you something. If you know it, shaitan will never defeat you. He says, what is it? He says, read Ayat al-Kursi. If you read Ayat al-Kursi, shaitan is defeated. He said, Abu Huraira was so impressed, he let him go. He went to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and he told him the story. He said, Prophet Muhammad told him, Sadaqaka wa huwa kadhib. He told you the truth, but he's usually a liar, because that was the shaitan. That was the shaitan coming as a man, right, to steal whatever it is that he's doing, mischief, but he told him the truth. But so the predominant thing is he's a liar, right? So al-hukm ala al-aghlab, this is the fiqh ruling that we use to also support that ijma'. If the ijma' of a situation, then it's valid, right? Now, hadith number 2 said water cannot be made impure. Hadith number 3, it says it can be changed through changing color, taste, or smell. Is there a contradiction here?
No,
Okay? No?
because hadith number 2 is specific to that. What you call downfield of well, but hadith number 2 is not that well.
Okay. Nahyan, right? Nahyan? Nahyan, brother Nahyan? Ronnie. Okay, I'm referring you to someone else. Okay. Brother Ronnie said because the hadith number 2 he was talking about the well, hadith number 3 is more general. Okay, that's one way to think about it, right? In order for us to understand this, okay, we gonna go to another source. Let's go to the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us when we don't find water, what do? Tayammum. Using what? Sand or soil. It has to be clean, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah number 6, فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً فَتَيَمَّمُوا صَعِيدًا طَيِّبًا. If you don't find ma'. Ma' meaning? Water, right? By the way, you answer and I give you anything. Ronnie. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you don't find water. He didn't say if you don't find the water. If you don't find water. Okay. Now, sorry, another fiqh principle, just to understand. You don't have to remember all this, but just to understand and appreciate it. The fiqh principle says, النكرة في سياق النفي تفيد العموم. Meaning, a matter, an indefinite word, such as ma. In Arabic, we know definite and indefinite. The definite is the al-ma, the water, the house, the boy. This is definite. Indefinite, just water, just boy, just house, right? Without the alif lam. Right. So an indefinite word, such as the word ma, in a negative context, here it says what? فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَا. You don't find water, right? That's a negative context. If you find that, that makes the word general in its meaning. That makes the word general in its meaning. When you get the notes, it's a little bit deep, so you will give it some time. Meaning, as long as it's called water, then it is tahur. If it changes from water, it's something else, right? Or if you find something that you can call water, then you cannot make tayammum. And the water is tahur, meaning this ayah says, if you don't find water, make tayammum. But if I find water, then I cannot make tayammum, right? But I have to find water, which you actually can call or can be called water, right? So bear with me here. And we talked about definite and indefinite. So that means this is the reconciliation between the two hadith. Number one, only tahur water is exclusively called water. Only the tahur water, which is pure and can be purifying, can be called water. Anything else is just a type of water, but it's not tahur. For example, tea water, mint water, flower water, rose water, even dirty water. It's called water, but it's not the water that we use. That one, which can be exclusively called water, is the water that is tahur, that you can use for wudu, right? Number two, water can be either tahur or najis, right? Can be either pure and purifying or najis and you cannot use it, right? Number three, only the tahur water can be exclusively called water. We talked about this. And then number four, water can be affected by change in smell, in color, or in taste, right? You drop flour in the water, it might change the color. It might change its smell, right? It might change its taste. And same thing applies to anything else. So then, let's stop here for a second, just to examine Ibn Hajj. Ibn Hajj, he's the scholar that's writing this book. Hadith number one, he said water is pure, right? An example is seawater. So he said the water is in general pure, and the example is seawater. Hadith number two, he says water is pure and nothing can make it impure. That is the exclusive water. And hadith number three teaches how can actually water can be changed. And when it changes, it can be something else, but it can be changed. So if you look at the sequence and the wisdom of the scholar, all pure, it can be pure, change. right? Just to appreciate that. Now, let's go to hadith number 4. Anybody downloaded the book, by the way? When we were... A lot of guilty faces. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. But if you can, download inshallah. Number 4. Number 4 is an interesting hadith. Number 4, it says, if water is enough to fill 2 qulla, he says qulla, or pots, it will not carry impurity. And this came in at Tirmidhi. What's a qulla? Qulla, anybody know what qulla is? Anybody who's Arab here? Originally Arab? No? Qulla is, can anybody guess what it is? No, not the size. What is it? What's a qulla? Well, something container. Right. So it's a container, right? The hadith said if the water is enough to fill 2 qulla, then nothing can impurify it. It cannot carry impurity, right? Qulla, there's different definitions of it, but the strongest one is that qulla is approximately 500 liters in size. 500 liters, right? So it's a big container, right? So basically, if you think about it, this is as if it's saying large quantity of water cannot be, cannot catch impurity. Like you said, seawater is so big, right? Think that way. Now, there's a different size of opinion. Now, why should we worry about the size of the water? Why is that important?
Concentration. Like, if you have a lot more water, and let's say just a certain amount of whatever that's najasa, then in comparison, like most of the water is going to be fine, or it might just disperse entirely, or just not cause you harm.
Right. Okay. That's one. What else? Why should we care about the size of the water? You didn't order your fiqh hats yet, right? Yes.
If let's say you have 1,000 liters of water and then maybe a few drops of non-estimated impure, so it's going to be complete waste. It's going to create a whole waste.
Okay. Right. So one of the things is I should care about the size of water relatively because there is a possibility of the water to carry impurity. Because the hadith said what? If you have 2 qulla or more, it's hard to make it impure. And that means what? If you have less, maybe it will be easy to be impure, right? At least by inference, right? So there's a possibility that the water can carry impurity. Number 2 is that this hadith agrees with hadith number 3 that change can happen, right? Because this hadith said what? If you have more than 2 qulla, it's not possible to carry impurity. But if you have less, that means if you have less, you can. That means there can be change. So that agrees with hadith number 3. Right. So the inference of this hadith is, if the water, I'm going to reverse it, if the water is less than 2 qulla, then it will carry impurity, right? Can carry impurity. That's the opposite, right? Now, that means the scholars now says, okay, I guess we have to classify the water based on size. More than 2 qulla, less than 2 qulla. Okay, let's keep going with this. So now we have the qulla dilemma, or the qulla opinions, right? Because of this, the scholars differ again. Opinion number one, they says, if impurity falls into plenty of water, that's the more than 2 qulla thing, right? If impurity falls into plenty of water, then it remains pure. Because the hadith said, more than 2 qulla, nothing will happen to it. Then it will remain pure, right? Unless there is a change in smell, taste, and or color. That's opinion number 1. So opinion number 1 says, if it's more than 2 qulla, right, and impurity drops in it, it will remain pure, except if you see changes happening. Right. Also, opinion number 1 says, if impurity drops into little water, then it will become impure, period. It doesn't matter you see change or not. That's opinion 1. Are you following how they got this? Because the hadith said, if it's more than 2 qulla, it's hard to be impure. So the opinion 1 said, okay, if impurity falls into little water, then that's it. It's impure. That's where they stop. So this opinion considered the size of the water. Opinion 2 says no. Purity of water is only changed through smell, taste, or color. It does not matter if the water is plenty or little. That means this opinion considered changes to what? Taste, color, or smell. Has nothing to do with size. So opinion 2 says, I'm not going to worry about size. If there are changes, that's it. If there are no changes, it doesn't matter the size. Right. Just a quick thing, by the way. When we say change in smell, some people say, wait a second, Zamzam water has a smell. It has a unique smell. Seawater has a smell. Okay, the changes in smell here is the changes to the origin of that material. So Zamzam water has a smell, that's its smell. Changes to something else, foul, something different, that's that change, right? So just keep that in mind, right? And usually that change in smell is introduced to the water from outside, not from the water itself. Something drops in it and changes it. So that's the kind of smell we're talking about. Many scholars go with opinion 2. Opinion 2, which says that the purity of water is only change when we see smell, a change in smell, color, or taste. It doesn't matter small, large, whatever. We see that, then there's a change. Most scholars do that. So then, if the scholars say that, the question is, why did Prophet Muhammad ﷺ tell us about the size? If we're not gonna go with it, why the size at all? This really requires a mathematician. Any thoughts? If the scholars, most of the scholars, go with the opinion that we're not going to care about the size, if we see a change in those 3 characters, then there's a change, we're not going to care about size. Then why did Prophet Muhammad ﷺ tell about size? Tells us about size. Yes?
Is it probably also when someone said it that also matters?
Because?
Because why would the source say such a thing that also matters? Regardless something happened because of that reason the source said it at that particular.
For a particular event, okay, that's doable, but that's not the main reason. Yes?
In our daily house, we don't have, we cannot judge only based on colors. What I meant is that, let's say the house, people may ask, oh, can I have little one?
They cannot, right. They cannot relate to size necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying size is hard to measure, so maybe we should not. Okay. The reason Prophet Muhammad ﷺ mentioned size is that he's talking about what predominantly happens. Remember we talked about predominance situation? What predominantly happens. What does that mean? Meaning if you have a lot of water, plenty of water, it's usually very hard to change. It usually remains pure. That is the reason for that hadith. Not so we can take it and say, okay, we're going to measure everything, 2 qulla above, that's it, less than 2 qulla, right? But he also wants us to think. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wants us to think, because if everything is given to us, we're just going to be lazy, right? So, for example, in the sea, someone urinates in the sea. Is that going to contaminate the sea? No. It's not going to contaminate the sea. Maybe that's a specific spot. But if you go here, you can make wudu. Right? So because you know that, you know this hadith, and you are in the sea, and someone does that, but you do wudu, you're not going to say, hey, what are you doing? You did this, I can't make wudu. You make wudu. That's fine. You make wudu in this area, that's absolutely fine. Right? But that doesn't mean, think of this, but that doesn't mean that the plenty of water cannot become also impure. How? A huge drop of oil. Remember when the oil company dropped tons of oil in the water? The sea was pretty much oil, right? So that can happen, right? But these are usually the exceptions, right? But if we're talking about our normal situations, then inshallah it will remain pure. Now, this is very interesting. Aisha radiallahu anha, you know, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was married to Aisha, of course. He was married also to another wife. Her name was Safiya. So Aisha mentioned Safiya in a negative way. Right? Women can be jealous. That kind of stuff. So she mentioned in a negative way. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told her, "Oh Aisha, you have said a word. If it was to be mixed with the sea water, it would have contaminated it." Subhanallah. Think about it. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam using fiqh to show us visual imagination of the sin that Aisha, or the negativity that she did. That word you did could have contaminated the whole seawater. Right? So that the whole water, which does not change does not have any change, right? That means that even that the whole water that does not change can change from such a negative word. That's meaning of that hadith, right? And of course, if you think about it, negative words in Islam, when you curse someone, when you talk bad about someone, is a sin. So this kind of sin contaminating something physical, such as the seawater, right? To show you the gravity of it. So then, what are the conclusions so far, right? What are the conclusions from Hadith 1 to 4? Number 1, if an impure material drops into water, impure, right? Some najasa, some urine, some dirt, whatever it is, drops into water. If there are no changes to the color, to the taste, to the smell, then the water is fine. It's tahur and pure, and you can use it for wudu, even though some impurity dropped in it. Some impurity dropped in it, but you look at it, there's no change in color, there's no change in smell, there's no change in taste. You might say, ew, I'm not going to use it. That's a different story, but that's not fiqh. Remember, sometimes this is the only water you have. So ew is not going to work. You must make wudu. Can you do it or not? There's impurity dropped. You look at it, there's no change, then you use it, right? If there are any changes in color or taste or smell, then the water is impure, right? Meaning, I cannot use it for purification. I cannot use it for wudu. I cannot use it for ghusl. Okay? Number 2. So this was for impure material dropping in. But also in the water can drop what? Pure material. Right? Such as tea, such as mint, such as whatever. If a pure material drops into water, if there are no changes, then water remains pure. No changes. Drop mint, but there's nothing. It doesn't change, nothing. Right? Then it's still tahur, it's still water, and you can use it. What if there are changes? What do you think is going to happen? What if there are changes? Can I use that water?
If you drop pure material into the water, then you can use it to purify yourself.
Can or cannot? Cannot. Okay. Anyone else? He said you drop something. What did you say? You drop what? Leaf?
Something pure.
Pure.
Water, let's say.
We drop mint.
Mint.
Right. Drop mint in the water. You cannot use it to make wudu. Okay.
If it changed, like we said, it changed entirely. Smell
Okay.
and everything.
Right. And there are changes, right? There are changes, right? Okay. Any other opinion? Any other faqih or faqihah here? Yes.
I agree with him, because if you can, then we can use the tea. Because tea is pure, we use it,
Right.
and we could have made wudu with the tea, but we can't. We
Right.
change the water. It's like
Water
it's
law,
not.
that's not.
Right. So when it comes to yes. You want to say something? Okay. Remember the ayah. فإن لم تجدوا or فلم تجدوا ماء طيبا فإن لم تجدوا ماء, if you don't find water, not the water, water, فتيمموا, then tayammum. He didn't say the water, he says water. Why did he say water? Because what you find, if this thing can be exclusively called water, then you can use it for wudu, and you cannot do tayammum anymore, right? So, if a pure material drops into the water, but you can still call it water, you can actually use it for wudu. Even though there's some change, but the change is like not significant enough. There's that you can actually call it water, exclusively water. You can still use it for wudu. If the change is significant, that you say I can't. It's yellow now. Because you can drop pure material, but nothing happened. You think something happened because it dropped, but there's nothing. The color didn't change. Smell, nothing. Tastes similar like water, right? Then you can use it for wudu or for purification. But if there is actually a significant change, then you cannot use it for wudu or for purification. And at that time, what do we call the water? It's not tahur anymore. What is it called? Tahir. Nice. Should get a cake, right? Chocolate, right? Sorry. Cake. People are like, what? He's gonna give us cakes now? That's gonna be major work. You guys you're ready for trying. One each, please. It's called tahir, right? So let me ask you a few questions, right? We're almost done. Let's just ask a few questions, right? Can you make wudu? Raise hand, okay? Can you make wudu with rose water? You know what's a rose water, right? Can you make wudu with rose water? Anyone else? Sisters are sleeping. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You can make wudu with rose water. Okay.
No, because the smell is different. So you can
We just talked about it. Rose water is pure. So if it is really rose water to the extent that the water changed, then no. Right? But if you drop and nothing changed, then it's a no. Most likely rose water, it already changed. Otherwise, we don't call it rose water to start with. Right? Okay. Can you make wudu with Zamzam water? Easy, right? Yes. Okay. Is it exclusively water? Why we call it Zamzam water then? If it's just water, why? Huh? Because it's a specific kind of water. Why do we call Zamzam water? Right. The name of the well is Zamzam. That's it. So it's a tricky thing. It's not rose that made it. It's not leaf. It's not tea. It's just Zamzam water, but it's just the place, right? But it's not really different water. It is still called water. It's just right. Now you have a bucket of water. You drop a soap in it. Soap. Can you use it? I'm gonna ask the sisters who didn't say anything. Can you use it to make wudu or purification? Yes or no? And think, it's not always yes or no. It might be in the middle. You drop soap in the water. What do you have to look for? Right, which means a change. You have to look for a change. If it changes, right, and there's a smell, it looks different now, it tastes probably soapy, right? Then you cannot use it to make wudu, right? Okay. And now you earn chocolate. It works. Okay. You have a bucket of water. We found the bucket of water. We're a bucket of water, and you drop some impurity in that bucket of water, right? Sister, can you use it to make purification? If there's significant change, then that's impure, then I cannot use it, right? Perfect. You got it. See, that change thing is very, very critical. Sorry, put it that way. And then if there's no change, then it's fine. There's no like, wait a second, I just dropped impurity. Islam is very practical. Believe it or not, it's very practical, right? And it could be for situations where you don't have water. You cannot say ew. Ew is not going to work. Now, can you make ghusl with Zamzam water? Raise your hand if you know. Yes, right? We make ghusl all the time. Is that okay? Because make ghusl and then the water goes in the drain, you lose the water. Is that all right? You're all laughing, so okay, what's the answer? You make ghusl with Zamzam water, and it all goes down the drain. This is a holy water thing. Is that all right? Yeah?
I mean, yeah, if you have that much Zamzam.
If you have that much Zamzam, you can... Okay. I'm sorry? You're at the well, okay. No, you took a lot of water with you back home. You're making ghusl. Is it okay the holy water goes into... Is it halal or haram? Right. Shall I drop a tea leaf first?
You go to Makkah anyways, and they have all those drains.
Right. We know that people do, but the question is, Is it alright? I mean, so I tricked you. Is it really holy water? Is it called holy water?
It's Zamzam water.
It has barakah, but it's not the water. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in it. Why? Because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Hadith, Zamzam liman shuribat lah. Zamzam is whoever you intend for, or whatever you intend for will happen. Okay, I know a lot of people drink water. Please Allah cure me, give me money, this, and it doesn't happen. Because they don't believe that. They just don't believe it. Just say it. It's all really your iman, and you actually believe in it. You actually believe in it, right? So the Zamzam itself, as a water, there's no holy water. We don't have that concept, right? It has barakah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in it. But it's itself, you can do definitely ghusl with it, okay? Can you recite Quran on water before you use it? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. And then you can take a bath with it, and then it goes down the drain. Is that alright? So every time you start, you say A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Okay, that's wrong. So you know, so you just when we get to the wudu. Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So we're jumping, but inshallah, when we get to the wudu, the only thing you say when you start wudu is Bismillah. You can say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, but it's Bismillah is the most authentic. That's it. Some people, and you know later that some people when they make wudu, they make dua on every single thing. I don't know if you know that. You know that? Right, I've seen that, right? I grew up like that. Oh Allah, give me my book in my right hand. Oh Allah, like this. Absolutely wrong. Absolutely bid'ah. There's no such thing, right? So, yes.
Regarding the question, can you recite Quran with water? You can, because people does ruqyah on
So does that make the water holy? And come on, you lost it.
No, the question is, can you recite Quran with the water? Yeah.
Right, and then later you use it for ghusl and stuff. Is that okay? It went down the drain. That's no respect.
I don't say
You're already stuck now. You got to answer. Yes.
It's just water.
It's just water. You recite Quran again for the barakah. It's just water, right? We don't have that concept. Yes.
It's like when people make dua, right? And then you're making a lot of dua, and then you like splash it on your face.
Exactly.
You're rubbing all of it. It's like it's not like some energy ball in your hand. It's just, let me ingest it.
Yeah, right.
It's, you ask Allah. It's
Right.
like,
Exactly. Bag of dua. Right? Alhamdulillah. Excellent. Okay. Okay. Coffee drops into a bucket of water. I keep repeating it so then we get the concept. Sister Tamna. Amna. Okay, Amna. Coffee drops in the bucket of water. Can you use it to make ghusl? You already determined there's a change. You have to check the change, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you check the change and in what?
In the smell, the taste, and the
Color? Any of the three, and if there is change, then
you
we cannot. We cannot use it. Any other answer? Remember, if the change is significant, that it's not water anymore, right? You taste it and it's like, wow, it still tastes water. It's not really. Remember that. It's tricky because that's a pure material. It's not any change for pure material. If pure material drops, you have to check. If there's significant change that you cannot call it water anymore, now it's coffee. Then that's fine.
No, yeah, I meant like it changes so much that it tastes like coffee now.
That is not called water. Exactly. Perfect.
But for najasa, then even if there's a slight change, then it's
Yes. If you drop najasa in the bucket of water and there is a change, that's it. Doesn't matter big or not, it's impurity. That's the thing about the impurity, right? And we are done. Alhamdulillah, we're done on time, almost, given the Maghrib and everything. So please download the book, right? It's a really good book to have. Believe me, for years to come, there's still things about the Salah there. There's things about Janazah there. It's amazing book. It's an amazing book. And inshallah, we can stop here, Abir. We can stop here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.